Explore Hadrian's Wall with us as we walk coast to coast in 8 days. Today, we walk the most famous stretch of the wall, from Chester's to once Brewed. Nicole's trail dances have become a tradition on this trip, and we're feeling pretty good about today. When our host from Hall Barns dropped us off at this trailhead, she said that today we'd really be getting up on the wall. She wasn't lying. If you've been watching these videos waiting for all those famous views that you've seen of Hadrian's Wall, this is the video you've been waiting for. Today, after a little bit of country walking, we're going to get up on the heights of Hadrian's Wall and all those gorgeous historic views that you've been wanting to see. This stretch here is a nicely preserved turret. Up until this point in our walk, this is one of the longest sections of the wall that we've seen, but that'll soon change. We're pretty high up on these hills, looking out over the northern countryside, and I couldn't resist taking a few minutes to get some photos. The first 3 days of our journey, we only saw small bits of the wall. At the start of day 4, we're excited to see more. As we climb up onto the heights and take in the gorgeous views beyond the limits of the Roman Empire, we know that today will put us on 3 days of preserved Hadrian's Wall history. A lot of hikers begin their walk where we started today. It's fairly common to skip those first days because of the lack of Roman ruins. We wanted to do a coast-to-coast walk, and we're quite happy to go several days without a whole lot of Roman history. But if you're here for Hadrian's Wall and those famous views, you might as well start at Chester's and spend your days on this section. This is the Carabura Roman fort. This mound of grass is the Roman fort, which hasn't been dug yet by archaeologists. Just like the other buried fort we saw, I'm surprised that this one hasn't been dug yet, but maybe I just watched too much Time Team. However, the temple to the god Mithras has been preserved here and is a great photo opportunity. We took a few minutes to photograph the Roman temple and help some others get their photographs. Then it was back to the trail. Today's a long hike and we have to keep moving. As you can see, much of this stretch is vertical. We took a little lunch break here on this farm, and then we were out again. Even though a lot of the wall has been robbed away for its stone, the vallum is still here, and the stone has just been moved to make this farmer's wall that's still built on the foundation of Hadrian's Wall. The vallum is the ditch that you see, which was part of the extra protection that the Romans built in front of the wall. Hadrian's Wall was started in 122 AD, and it only took about 7 years to complete. The Romans occupied it for over 300 years before the collapse of the Roman Empire. So these views from this mile fort would have been seen for hundreds of years by Roman soldiers as they defended the empire from the people to the north. My family history is Scottish, so I do have a conflicted feeling about this wall, because as impressed as I am with the Roman engineering and the power of the Roman Empire, I often think about the fact that the people the wall was designed to oppress are my ancestors. This is a Roman mile fort. They built one every Roman mile, which is slightly shorter than a modern mile. They also built turrets along the wall, 2 per stretch between mile fort, and several large forts across the country. We've already seen the big forts at Segadunum and Chester's. We're really up on the heights now, and the wall just falls away to the northern countryside. The ambition of the Romans to build their wall across these steep heights is truly impressive. These video time lapses move pretty quickly, and in most of my previous videos I've sped them up even more because I want them to be a watchable amount of time. For this stretch of the wall, I haven't sped up the footage as much because this is what you all came to see, and I want you to have an opportunity to really enjoy the historic wall and these forts and turrets and the amazing views that you can see as you make this walk. You have to wonder what the Roman soldiers would be thinking as they manned this wall, looking toward the north for 300 years. Most of them weren't true Romans, of course. They were from various colonized people or other parts of the empire. Some of the auxiliary soldiers would be granted Roman citizenship over time, and some were never considered Roman citizens at all, simply soldiers of the empire. This is the lower entry gate of the fort at Housesteads. As we climb this hill, we're on the northern slope of the fort, along this steep cliff and outside the Roman Empire. When we pass through the gate, we suddenly find ourselves at Housesteads. This is one of the best preserved Roman forts and one of the largest on the wall. We made a quick stop in the museum for the bathroom, and then we're into the fort. You can see the number of tourists who are here. It's a big attraction, and we also had gorgeous weather this day. The fort is on the southern slope of the hill, and the wall is straight ahead of where we're looking right now. That's where we came up a few minutes ago. The commander's quarters and the martial area of this fort are incredibly well preserved, and the views are just unbelievable. One fascinating thing about these forts is that outside of the walls would have been a whole town called a vicus. There's very little archaeology about that part of the fort, and we don't know a lot about what the vicus was like, or where it was, really. But that's where the soldiers would have gone for entertainment. It's where their wives or partners would have lived. Most Roman soldiers were forbidden from marrying. And here we have the barracks of the fort, where the soldiers and their horses would have lived. The cavalry lived in the same room as their horse, which seems odd to me, but that's how they did it. We spent quite a bit of time here at Housesteads, but eventually we had to get back on the trail because we still had quite a ways to go. These turrets are part of the western gatehouse that would have let people into the fort on the west side. I'm guessing this fort was a tourist attraction that you didn't have to pay for before the museum, and they've since fenced off the gate. Honestly, we were too tired to climb all the way back down and back up again, so we hopped the fence and ran for it before anybody could yell at us. After a clean getaway, we're through this fence and back on the trail. To our right is Hadrian's Wall. Normally, you're not supposed to walk on the history, but this stretch was a path, and we thought for a few minutes it wouldn't be a bad idea. I immediately jumped down into this turret, which is a sort of forward defensive position that the Romans would have used. We had a short stretch right up on the wall on these gorgeous cliffs over the countryside before we had to get off. This is Mile Castle 37, with the gate to the north still in beautiful condition. On this stretch, the trails are well preserved and maintained because this is obviously the most visited portion of Hadrian's Wall. Some of it's pretty vertical, like this stretch, which took a bit of ambition to go up. We would do quite a few of these verticals over the next 2 days, and they're worth it because they take you right up into these amazing views. To my left, we can see south into England. To the right, over the wall, would have been the lands beyond the Roman Empire. Today it's part of England and historically Caledonia or Scotland. The wall was built in several phases. A foundation was laid first, and then the stone base, which is dressed nicely as you can see, but the inside is filled with cemented stone. On top of that would have been a loose stone or wooden palisade, making this wall about 5 to 7 meters tall. A shot of trail rum fortifies us for the next climb up the hill, past another mile castle, and out over this lake, which is one of the more famous sites on Hadrian's Wall. Nicole and I had practiced for this trip and done quite a number of long hikes to build up our stamina. But a few of these stretches, like this one here, are very vertical and definitely took some effort to get up and down. If you're the type of person who doesn't like vertical hiking or has trouble with that, there's a lower road to the south that will detour around this. But we're here for the gorgeous views. We wanted to be able to look down on the famous lake, and for us, it wasn't that challenging of a hike. Few calories burned, but otherwise a nice climb. This section is known lovingly as the Crags. These big rocky outcroppings on these cliffs to the right are facing north. As we descend this rather scary slope, you'll see the famous sycamore tree on the left. This is the Sycamore Gap, and sadly, as I was preparing these videos, the tree was cut down by vandals. It's terrible that this iconic tree is now gone. We chose to get our view of the sycamore from the opposite side, and I had a little fun flying the camera over the cliff trying to catch some of the views. After a snack at Sycamore Gap, the final push of the day would take us past another mile castle and into town. In the distance, you can see the town of once Brewed. That's where we'll be spending the night. So we checked our maps and made our final calculations. Then from there, it was just a beautiful, slightly scary descent down one of these steep, craggy cliff faces and past another Roman turret. At this gate, we'll make a left and take the road into town. Tomorrow, we'll have to climb back up here to get on the wall, but it's time to come down off the wall and rest for the night. We make our way to Once Brewed, one of those cute little 3-building English towns along the wall. We pass the Sill, an education center, and the twice Brewed brewery, and arrive at the Valum Lodge. This was one of my favorite stays because of the cute dog and foot massagers in every room. We end the day checking our maps for tomorrow's adventures. Check back soon as we hike from Once Brewed to Gilsland on Hadrian's Wall.